Robert Mugabe, teacher, revolutionary, liberator of Zimbabwe. Then, torturer, tyrant, the man who starved his own people. Mengistu Haile Mariam, soldier, voice of the poor, overthrew an emperor. Then, the Red Terror, 500,000 of his own citizens dead. Gaddafi, the boy from the desert, Pan-African dreamer, kicked out the Western bases. Then, 42 years of repression, dragged out of a drainpipe and killed by the people he claimed to love. 3 men, 3 countries, 3 different decades, the same story. But here's what nobody tells you. They all got it from the same blueprint, written in France, 200 years ago, by a man named Maximilien Robespierre. Before he was the most feared man in France, Robespierre was nobody. A lawyer from Arras, a small provincial town in northern France. Son of a lawyer who abandoned him, mother dead before he was 7, raised by grandparents. He had every reason to be bitter and small. Instead, he became something rare, a man who genuinely believed the poor deserved justice. He took cases no one else would touch. He argued against royal absolutism at a time when that could get you imprisoned. He won an essay prize for arguing against the death penalty. He once wrote, "The secret of freedom lies in educating people." People laughed at him at first. He was physically small, his voice was weak, he had a nervous twitch, but his ideas were enormous. When the king summoned the Estates General in 1789, the first National Assembly France had seen in 175 years, the people of Arras sent Robespierre to represent them. He was 30 years old. He had never been to Paris. What he found there was a country breaking apart. France was bankrupt. Bread prices had tripled. People were literally starving in the streets, while the royal court at Versailles held banquets. Robespierre arrived, opened his mouth, and the revolution found its voice. He became the champion of the poor. He was so consistent, so incorruptible, that people nicknamed him the Incorruptible. His actual nickname was the Incorruptible, but that would not stay his nickname for very long. You see, power corrupts, and the Incorruptible was about to taste a lot of power. And then it began. The army, the people supposed to protect the king, defected to the side of the commoners. The officers who could take orders from the king fled. The king was left defenseless from his own army and his own people. Then it got worse. The king tried to flee, and his own people caught him. The riots had been going on for so long that the only rational option left was storming the palace. And they did. The revolution had crossed a line it could never walk back from. The king was arrested, tried, and executed. France was no longer a monarchy, it was a republic. But a republic with no stability, no peace, and no clear leader. That power vacuum was one Robespierre was all too happy to fill. Inside France, royalist conspiracies were everywhere. Traitors, real and imagined, lurked in every corridor. And in this atmosphere of genuine emergency, the revolution built a machine, the Committee of Public Safety. 12 men, absolute power. Robespierre was its moral engine. You see, Robespierre believed that the revolution was too precious to be destroyed by its enemies. The people were at stake, he said. And so, anyone who threatened the revolution had to be eliminated. Not imprisoned, eliminated. Does that remind you of anyone? The guillotine, which had begun as an instrument of humane execution, replacing the brutal punishments of the old regime, became a production line, 17,000 people were officially executed during what became known as the Terror. Some historians put the real number, including summary killings and deaths in prison, above 40,000. 40,000 deaths, most overseen by Robespierre. The irony is that a majority of those killed were not aristocrats. They were peasants, workers, the very people Robespierre had spent his entire life defending. They died under his watchful, loving gaze. He loved his people so much that he killed them by the thousands. How does this happen? How does a man who hated the death penalty become the architect of mass death? The answer should be kind of obvious to us all. Once the devil exists, you have to kill it. The moment you decide that the revolution is more important than the individual, once you decide that your enemies are not just wrong, but evil, once you decide that emergency justifies everything, there is no floor. Robespierre never had a limiting principle, and as such never had a limit. Every execution creates fresh enemies. The victim's family, friends, allies, they are now suspects. And suspects become enemies. And enemies must be eliminated. The circle keeps shrinking. Robespierre's friend and co-architect of the revolution, Georges Danton, started arguing that the terror had gone too far, that it was time to show mercy. Robespierre signed his death warrant. Danton went to the guillotine shouting, "You will follow me, Robespierre. The scaffold will claim you too." He was right. 3 months later, the men around Robespierre, terrified they were next on his list, arrested him first. He tried to shoot himself. The bullet only shattered his jaw. He was guillotined the next day, his jaw held together with bandages. The crowd cheered. The man who started it all, devoured by the machine he built. Now let's go back to those 3 names from the beginning. Mugabe. In 1980, when Zimbabwe won independence, Mugabe gave a speech that shocked the world because it was generous. He called for reconciliation with the white minority. He protected their farms. He invited them to stay. Western leaders called him a statesman. Within 2 years, he was sending a North Korean-trained army into Matabeleland to massacre tens of thousands of people from the Ndebele tribe, his political rivals. The logic? They were a threat to the revolution, to Zimbabwe, to the people. Sound familiar? Mengistu. In 1974, when he and the Derg overthrew Emperor Haile Selassie, Ethiopia was electric with possibility. Students, intellectuals, workers. Everyone believed a new Ethiopia was being born. Mengistu himself had given fiery speeches in committee halls, electrifying crowds with his vision of a just society. Then came what Ethiopians still call the Red Terror. He literally stood in Meskel Square and smashed bottles of red liquid on the ground, representing, he said, the blood of counter-revolutionaries. At least 500,000 people were killed. Many of them were the same students and intellectuals who had celebrated his rise. They had become threats, threats to the revolution, threats to the people. Gaddafi. At 27, he led a bloodless coup in Libya and immediately kicked out the American military base. He nationalized the oil. He built schools and hospitals. He wrote a political manifesto, the Green Book, about direct democracy and power to the masses. For a moment, he was the most exciting leader in Africa. Then the opposition started, and Gaddafi's response was, there can be no opposition to the will of the people, because if he represented the will of the people, then opposition to him was opposition to the people. That is Robespierre's logic, word for word. 200 years later. So what is the pattern? Step 1, a genuine idealist. Someone who actually loves the people, who actually suffered, who actually fought for something real. Step 2, power in the middle of an emergency. Real enemies, foreign pressure, internal sabotage, economic collapse. The threat is not invented. Step 3, the decision that the cause is bigger than the rules, that normal morality must be suspended, just temporarily, just for now. Step 4, the first purge. It works. The threat is neutralized. Step 5, new threats appear, because they always do. Step 6, the purge turns inward. Former allies, former friends. Step 7, the machine has no off switch. The tragedy of Robespierre and of Mugabe and Mengistu and Gaddafi is not that they were hypocrites who never believed what they said. The tragedy is that they did. They believed so completely that they were right, that anyone who disagreed had to be wrong in a way that justified their death. That is not cynicism. That is something far more dangerous. It is certainty. Robespierre was guillotined on July 28, 1794. He was 36 years old. The revolution he gave everything to continued without him. France eventually became a republic, a real one, but not because of the terror, despite it. The historians still argue about him. Monster, visionary, victim of his own logic. But here is what is not up for debate. Every generation produces men like Robespierre, men who are right about the injustice, men who are wrong about what that rightness licenses them to do. And every generation that forgets this lesson becomes the next lesson. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.